The years between us. It's strange how silence can grow between two people who once talked about everything. When Arav got the job offer in London, I was proud. Ecstatic, even. He had worked for years to get that kind of opportunity. But pride has a way of disguising heartbreak. I smiled as he packed his suitcase, folded his shirts, and tucked our photos into the side pocket like he was taking pieces of me with him. We promised it would just be a year. 1 year apart to build our dreams, and then we'd find a way back to each other. The first few months, we called every night. The time difference was brutal. His evenings were my mornings, but we managed. I'd sit on my balcony with my coffee, half asleep but glowing just from hearing his voice through the static. He'd talk about the cold weather, his tiny flat, and the way he missed the smell of home-cooked food. But time has a cruel rhythm. Calls turned into texts. Texts turned into short replies. And before I realized it, our love began to live in unsent messages. I didn't blame him. Work consumed him. Long hours, deadlines, clients who expected him to exist in multiple time zones. And I had my own life here. My teaching job, my parents, my friends who pretended not to notice when I checked my phone too often. Still, every few weeks there'd be a small reminder that he hadn't forgotten me. A message at midnight. Greater than, saw someone who looked like you today. Missed you more than I thought possible. Or a photo from his office window captioned, not as beautiful as your sunsets. I'd reply, heart trembling, and for a few minutes it felt like we were back in that little cafe where we first met. Two people who couldn't stop looking at each other, afraid the moment might vanish if they blinked. But the year became 2, then 3. Each time he'd say, just a bit longer, Mira. Once I'm settled, I'll come home, and I believed him, because love makes you believe. Until one day his messages stopped. Not all at once, but gradually, like a candle dying out. I tried to convince myself it was work again, that he'd call when things calmed down. But when weeks turned into months, something inside me quietly shattered. I stopped waiting for his name to light up my screen. I stopped checking old photos. Life went on. It always does. I moved to a new apartment closer to school. I started painting again, joined a book club, tried to fill the spaces where he used to be. People said I looked happier. Maybe I did. But at night, when everything went still, I'd feel that hollow ache. The one that comes from loving someone who isn't gone but isn't here either. Years later, when I'd almost made peace with the idea that Arav was just a chapter of my past, I received a message. Greater than, I'm coming home. No explanation, no apology. Just those 3 words that made my hands tremble as I read them over and over again. He was coming back, after all these years. And I didn't know whether to cry or to smile. There's something about airports that makes time blur. I used to think of them as places of possibility, where dreams began, where goodbyes were temporary. But the truth is, airports hold ghosts. Every time I walked past Gate 14 at Heathrow, I saw Mira's face in my mind. The way she smiled when she said, "Go chase your dreams, Arav. I'll be here when you come back." And I believed her. I believed us. The first few months after I left were a blur of meetings, pressure, and the constant ache of being somewhere that didn't feel like home. I'd come back to my flat after midnight, exhausted, and open her messages just to read her old jokes. Sometimes I'd record voice notes I never sent. Tiny pieces of my day that felt too small to matter but too heavy to keep. Hey, you won't believe this. My client brought chai to the meeting. Not like yours, though. Yours will always win. It snowed today. The city looks beautiful, but it's nothing without you. I'd listen to them again before sleeping, as if she could somehow hear me across the miles. Then came the promotions, the bigger projects, the deadlines that devoured weekends. Work became my identity. My success grew, but my heart shrank. Every new achievement came with an emptiness I couldn't explain. And then one day, I noticed something that scared me. I hadn't spoken to Mira in weeks. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how. How do you reach out when guilt fills every word? When you know the distance isn't just measured in miles anymore? So I did what cowards do. I told myself she'd moved on. That maybe she deserved someone who wasn't always late, tired, or half present. But I never stopped writing. Emails that I never sent. Drafts that stayed hidden on my laptop, labeled for Mira. Letters about my day, my mistakes, my longing, my love. When I finally went home after 3 years, it wasn't for a holiday. My mother had fallen sick, and I needed to be there. But beneath that reason was another truth I couldn't say aloud. I wanted to see her. I didn't even know if she still lived in the same city. But when I opened my old phone, there it was. Her contact still pinned to the top of my messages. I typed 3 words before I could stop myself. Greater than I'm coming home. No punctuation, no explanation, just the truth. For hours after sending it, I sat on the plane replaying every memory of us. The time she waited outside my office for 2 hours just to have lunch together. The night she held my hand through silence when I almost gave up on my dream. The promise I broke when I said, 1 year, and I'll be back. I didn't know what to expect when I landed. Would she reply? Would she even care? Maybe she'd found someone else. Maybe she'd forgotten me entirely. But a part of me, a foolish, stubborn part, believed that love like ours didn't just disappear. It went quiet. It waited. When I stepped out of the airport, the air smelled like home. Dusty roads, the scent of rain, distant honking, the hum of life I'd missed for years. And somewhere in that noise, I felt something shift. For the first time in years, I wasn't chasing success. I was chasing her. Part 3, The Unexpected Return, Mira. It was a Thursday afternoon when I saw him again. The kind of day that felt too ordinary to hold something extraordinary. School had just ended, and I was walking toward the small cafe near the gate, the same one I used to visit when I missed him most. I don't even know why I went that day. Habit, maybe. The sky was overcast, and the air smelled like it might rain soon. I ordered my usual tea, sat by the window, and opened a book I wasn't really reading. That's when I saw him. Arav. He stood by the entrance, looking exactly like he didn't belong to this noisy, humid city. Crisp shirt, that same old brown watch on his wrist, eyes searching for something. Or someone. For a second, I thought my mind was playing a trick on me. But then he saw me. And the world stopped. It wasn't the kind of reunion I had imagined in all those lonely nights. There were no dramatic tears or running into each other's arms. Just silence. Heavy, uncertain, and real. He walked closer, his steps hesitant, like he was afraid one wrong move might break the moment. When he finally stood in front of me, his voice was softer than I remembered. Greater than, "Hi, Mira." 2 words. That's all it took for my heart to forget the years between us. "Hi," I said, my throat tightening. "You're back." He smiled, a small, almost guilty smile. Greater than, yeah. For good. This time, for good. I wanted to believe him, but the memories of waiting, of silence, of unanswered messages, they all stood between us like invisible walls. We sat down, and for a few minutes, neither of us spoke. The air buzzed with everything we didn't say. He looked around the cafe, maybe realizing it hadn't changed much. Same wooden tables, same pale yellow walls. The only thing different was us. Greater than, "You still come here?" he asked. "Sometimes," I said, "when I need quiet. You used to say this place made you feel close to me. That was a long time ago." He nodded, his eyes dropping to his cup. I could tell he wanted to say more. I could tell I wanted to say more too. Then he reached into his bag and pulled out a small envelope. "I used to write to you," he said quietly. "Letters I never sent. I didn't know if you'd want them, but they're yours." I stared at the envelope. My name was written in his handwriting, the same way it looked when he used to leave notes on my desk years ago. I didn't open it. I just held it, feeling the weight of all the words he'd never said. "Why now, Arav?" I finally asked. "After all this time?" He looked up at me, eyes glassy but steady. "Greater than, because I couldn't breathe there anymore. Not without you." Something inside me broke. Not from pain, but from recognition. Because despite everything, despite the distance, the silence, and the years apart, a part of me had been waiting to hear those exact words. Rain started to fall outside, tapping gently against the window. For the first time in years, we didn't need to fill the silence. When we finally stood to leave, he asked softly, "Can I see you again?" I hesitated for a heartbeat, then nodded. "Tomorrow." He smiled, a little wider this time. And as he walked away into the rain, I realized something. Sometimes love doesn't return with grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes it just walks back into a cafe on a quiet Thursday afternoon, and everything changes again. The next day felt like a heartbeat that wouldn't settle. Every sound, every glance at the clock, every inhale, all of it built towards something I couldn't quite name. I told myself I was calm, that I just wanted closure. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. I wanted to see him again. I wanted to know if the years had been kind to us or if love had quietly rusted beneath the weight of time.